I'm Glenn McGinnis, and this is Outburst. On the program, we reflect on the life and legacy of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II.
She lived a good long life and she contributed to the world.
You know, the monarchy is not something I support. Hopefully we can get a bit closer through this.
So it's very upsetting, and I hope that probably time can help us heal her loss.
She'll be missed.
For the vast majority of us, Queen Elizabeth II, before her death, was the only British monarch we have ever known, and her incredible 70-year reign is unlikely to be matched for quite some time. She has left an indelible mark not only here in Canada, but around the world. So we sent our cameras out across the country to ask Canadians what impact her death has had on them. Our question:
what are your thoughts on the passing of Queen Elizabeth II?
I'm very sorry to hear of her passing. End of an era. She's a lovely woman, tremendous leadership to the free world in the Second World War. And I think it's sad, and I send on my condolences to her family.
It's quite sad because she's done so much, but she has so many respect, and I feel like her passing is going to be one of the moments that'll kind of bring, I wanted to say, the world together, because you can't hate the Queen, right? And everyone just respects her for that.
Hopefully we can get a bit closer through this.
It's sad, but at 96 she lived a good life, and she left a good legacy for the rest to be held.
Well, it's a powerful end of an era. She was ruling for 7 decades, so the history that's occurred and her maintenance of stability, which is, I think is the role of the monarchy, has been significant.
So I'm heartbroken. I do come from British heritage. My parents were new immigrants to Canada many years ago, and I was born here. I used to watch the Queen's speech every Christmas Day. My mother was a big fan of the royalty. So very heartbroken.
Obviously, it's sad when anyone dies. I don't know, I'm kind of excited to see what the succession of the monarchy is going to be like after her. For as long as I've been born, I only known her rule, so I'm excited to see what's coming next.
Oh, I'm sad that she passed. She was a queen for a really long time, right? And beloved by the people of England and the kingdom. So it's just sorry that she's passed.
I think, it's sad when someone passes away, the woman, but, the monarchy is not something I support. They have a pretty vicious colonial history. I don't think it's something to celebrate.
And even if one is not a monarchist, one cannot help but admire the dedication that she's shown for 70 years. And therefore there's to be an outpouring of gratitude and sympathy for her family.
Definitely very saddened by it. I mean, she's always been the queen. I'm 25, so my entire life, my parents' entire life. As someone who's joined the armed forces, I was looking forward to, serving the queen. But now it'll be her son, King Charles, which I'll be happy to do. But certainly will miss the queen and just what she's meant to Canada and the whole Commonwealth in general.
Queen Elizabeth, my mother, are almost the same age, and I've always thought of her as my mother, which a lot of people think of her as their grandmother. And yeah, it sort of made me cry when I heard she had died.
It's very upsetting to hear that the Queen has passed away. As myself, as an immigrant to Canada, she's also a figure and an icon for Canadian culture. So it's very upsetting, and I hope that probably time can help us heal her loss.
I sort of thought, she would, everybody has this idea that she would live forever. But at the same time, I could see it coming just because her, I see newsreels that her health is failing. So a little bit shocked because she's been the only monarch that I've known.
Well, for me, I've been quite emotional because it's like a passing of a family member in a sense, because she's always been with me. She's the only monarch I've ever known.
There are some things you kind of think are permanent, they're never going to go away. And she was one of those things. I always thought she would always be here. But you recognize she was 96. This somewhat isn't a surprise, but it just, you get up in the morning and suddenly there it is, and you know that she's gone, you can't help but be really saddened by it. It's really quite crushing, actually.
really didn't understand what was happening until we found out that the Queen had passed, and we had shivers. It's really the end of an era. I don't think that we'll ever see this. And I am personally not a monarchist, but the Queen was the person that really held the monarchy together over this past 70 years, and she did a phenomenal job, and I don't think anybody will actually do as good a job as she had.
In my 14 years of service, she's always obviously been the head of state, the figure we salute to, along with our country and the flag. And it's sad in a way to see her go. But at 96 years old, she has very much done her service for the Commonwealth. And I believe all Canadians should take a moment and welcome the new era at the same time. I think it's a turning point in our history.
I remember her as a kid coming to Canada, and my dad was always, he was in the armed forces and in the war, and I always had great respect for her, and I guess he passed that on to us. And I just thought her ability to be so dutiful was exemplary.
I think the Queen will be greatly missed. She's a big part of Canada's history and of the world history. Long reigning monarch. I think she'll be missed by a lot of people.
Yeah, you know, I wouldn't consider myself a monarchist, but I think the impact of the dedication to service that she exhibited, and I think her role in helping to end apartheid, are what stands out for me in terms of a life well lived, for sure.
Well, for me, I think it's an end of an era, and such a beautiful lady. Like, even at her age, she's going to be well missed. I had so much respect for her.
She's been the Queen our entire lives.
Yeah.
So I can remember singing "God Save the Queen" when I was a little girl for my brownie badge, and she just kind of stuck with me.
The Queen had a tireless sense of duty, and for her 70-year reign, she was a stable and reassuring presence for millions of people around the world. So we asked Canadians their thoughts on what Queen Elizabeth II embodied to them. Our question:
What does Queen Elizabeth II symbolize to you?
Peace, goodwill. She was a strong woman. She was what would you say? She was a mentor for a lot of women, for all over the world. Just to see how she worked and how she presented herself. A fine lady.
I suppose the leading of the English monarchy for decades. And yeah, as I said, kind of colonization, which also has a negative impact in England and over the rest of the world, because I'm originally from Jamaica and St. Lucia, so there's also kind of a negative impact, but I know she means a lot for a lot of people also.
Unity, I think, of the monarchy and the Commonwealth. She was the glue that held it together, I guess is how I'd say it.
Well, the Queen, I come from Ireland, and the Queen symbolizes to me, she was responsible for improving what were not good relationships between our two countries. She visited Ireland in, I think it was 2010, and she did a wonderful job.
Strength. She was just so strong. She went through so much in her lifetime, and she had such good leadership. She lived through the wars. She worked with Churchill. She did so much to make a difference, and she was strong through it all. She never backed down. She always stood her ground.
She symbolizes courage, bravery, how she can get a whole country together. I mean, I think she learned from the best, from her parents too, during World War II. And I don't know, she was just a great lady in my eyes.
Well, dignity, integrity, commitment. She was a mechanic during World War II. A life of service, and a life of service well done, in my opinion.
Queen Elizabeth II symbolizes to me family, support, politics. My mother was a very big fan of the Queen, so I've celebrated the royals a lot. There is some controversy around things she's done, but I think in her passing we can just support the good things she's done.
People looked up to her. You didn't hear any gossip about her at all.
you could tell that people throughout the world loved her, and there was never much criticism. I don't ever remember hearing people criticize her in the newspapers or anything like that. You know, just a genuine, loyal, gracious monarch.
Well, if you look across at the world right now, I mean, just a picture of her on coins and banknotes, and you know, her being there, bringing people together, bringing families together, has been a great strength in my world, and I think that's what we've lost a lot of, is the family ties.
I think for me, she was such an iconic person. You know, she's gone through so much personally as well, and I think she always have her head held high. And I think you know, like at 96 years of age, you know, you look at her platinum celebration, and she had a smile on her face, and I wish I'd be 96 and I have that kind of zest for life. I think just that humility and the gratitude to serve people, I think.
Stability, the monarch, and the Commonwealth. I mean, even the countries that are leaving the Commonwealth or want to leave still have to look towards that system that provided a stable thing. She never got political or anything like that. So no, I took my hat off to her.
She pretty much symbolizes everything that UK citizenship is at the moment, because she's the longest reigning monarch that we've had, full stop, and then she's been around for the whole of our lifetime. So for us as the younger generation, we don't know any ruling without her in it, and all decisions have had to pass through her. So for us, she's the biggest kind of person in history that we know, really.
Well, she symbolizes, let's say, first word that comes to my mind is colonization, which I'm against. So I associate this with negative feelings and negative, events in the history. Beyond that, I find the overall monarchy very far from my day-to-day life, let's say.
It symbolized what a family was as well. She ran an incredible household. I understand that it's always been in the public eye. They've gone under controversy, but she's always persevered through all that. So for me, she's just been an incredible, influential person, and just a true leader of such an incredible Commonwealth. So
she symbolized manners and dignity and grace, and in all her reign, she never put one step out of place. She was an amazing monarch, and she taught us all how to treat each other with grace and dignity and kindness in her sweet, soft-spoken voice.
Well, I'm a retired military member, so the Queen has been a long part of our military tradition and history, and as well, a big part of what serving in the military does. So it has lots of importance to me.
How many Canadian Prime Ministers have served during Queen Elizabeth II's reign? Is it 9, 12, or 21? The answer is 12. During the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, 12 Canadian Prime Ministers have held office. It begins with Louis Saint Laurent, who was Prime Minister at the time of Queen Elizabeth's coronation in 1953. He was followed by John Diefenbaker, Lester Pearson, Pierre Trudeau, Joe Clark, John Turner, Brian Mulroney, Kim Campbell, Jean Chrétien, Paul Martin, Stephen Harper, and Justin Trudeau. Queen Elizabeth II remains the longest-serving British monarch in history.
It's no secret that Canada held a special place in the Queen's heart. She was the head of state of all Commonwealth countries around the world, and with the exception, of course, of Great Britain, she has visited Canada more than any other, a total of 22 times during her 17-year reign as queen. She also frequently referred to this country as home, which exemplified her affection for Canada and Canadians. So we took to the streets across the country to ask people about the bond shared between our nation and Her Majesty. Our question:
What are your feelings on Queen Elizabeth's connection to Canada?
Not too familiar with it, to be honest. I'm Australian, so I don't know too much about the Canadian connection. But if it's
the same as Australia.
But if it's the same as that, yeah, we'll all pay our respects back to the Commonwealth. I don't have an issue with being part of the Commonwealth. I know some people want to separate, but no concerns for me.
I feel like it's just a purely symbolic thing. I don't feel connected. I'm not necessarily mourning the loss of our ruler. I really don't see it like that. I just think it's a historic thing and it's very symbolic.
I think she has a strong significance to Canada. The Queen is very present in everything we've done over the years. I've learned a lot about the Queen in Canada, and I think the connection is strong. It will be interesting to see how that changes with the future state of the Royals.
Even though there's a lot of water between us, she always kept up that solid connection from the UK over to Canada.
But since we're from the US, I've been struck with how much more deeply felt it is in Canada than in the US. Certainly in the US, people are sad and very much paying attention. But here, it's the overriding news story every day. And there is a difference, which as it should be.
Well, I think that even though in recent years it hasn't been in any really political sense, it's still important to keep for our heritage, being the figurehead, and I just think it's part of us as who we are as Canadians.
Wow, it was a great, very, solid, always there. I don't know how many trips she made to Canada over the years, but she was noted for making a number of trips, and I know that Canada was one of her favorite places to go over the years.
Queen Elizabeth loved Canada. This was home for her. She talked about that in many of her interviews over the years. I know I've heard that come from her mouth before, that she loved Canada and considered Canada a second home.
Well, again, I think when I first came here, I'm like, why don't you guys want independence? Like, why would you want any connection? Be your own country. But again, there is that sense of continuity in history that I think is meaningful.
She was closely connected to Canada because as a part of the Commonwealth, and everywhere you go, you see, the throne speech, the anthem, and so yeah, he was closely connected. So as a person who immigrated to Canada 10 years ago, I would say the presence of Queen still could be felt quite significantly.
Well, she was our queen. I mean, we grew up with her. She's, like her connections with Canada is part of our heritage. So, what else do you say?
I think they're fine. I think we are where we should be. We kept our sort of independence from her, but yet the legacy was still there. We all acknowledged her as a sovereignty, So I think that was a good relationship.
I think the connection, it is there. However, it has lessened, and I do think some Canadians are questioning how impactful that position is.
We saw her when she came for the laying of the cornerstone for the Canadian Museum of Human Rights. I don't know exactly what year that was, but she and Prince Philip walked across the footbridge and spoke to every person, and Prince Philip shook every veteran's hand that was out on that bridge, and it was a hot, hot, hot July day, and she just looked cool as a cucumber.
Obviously, I think obviously both my parents were where he worked in the Senate, and every time that Queen Elizabeth came down when I was young, I was always there in the parades, and I even remember she waved at me once, and I'll never forget. So to me, it might be a bit of a biased answer, but to me, it was like she was super, super close because I kind of grew up in the presence, and I kind of grew up a lot being close to the Senate.
I always felt really happy about that. Like we belong to something. We're such a young country that it was kind of nice to have somebody overseeing, and having her wasn't a bad thing, you know?
Well, she's really welcomed here. Everybody loves her, and she will be, after a long time, we'll still remember her.
Well, she's on. Sorry, I don't want to trouble, but she's on our dollar bill, I guess. And like on top of that, we have our whole parliament structure is still based on the around the Queen's. Like we have the Governor General, so it's gonna be. So we'll see. Like there's just so much that's been linked to Queen Elizabeth because of how long she's been in power for, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that goes still.
The Queen's successor, King Charles III, will have some big shoes to fill as he takes over for his mother as reigning monarch. For those of us roughly 70 years and younger, we have never witnessed a King of England or a King of Canada. And His Majesty the King will have his work cut out for him as he strives to make the monarchy relevant in these modern times. For our final question, we spoke to Canadians about what they anticipate from the new king as he steps into this enormous responsibility. Our question:
What qualities will you expect to see in Charles as king?
I would think the next monarch will be open-minded and looking to see what kind of changes are needed, to remain relevant in the future for the country.
Oh, so personally, I would hope that he would abdicate to William. My hopes aren't as high for him. It'll be interesting to see what he does, as his involvement has been more limited in terms of everything that's been passed over our years of living. But yeah, I mean, for us, William is the absolute favourite, and for us as a group, we've all said that we would prefer if it very quickly went to him and we could see what he's going to do for the country.
I expect to see more in with the times, where Queen Elizabeth was with her generation, where Prince Charles will be more with our generation and the younger generation, and same thing with Prince William. Prince William, is it? Yes.
Get a little more modern.
But maintain the professional
Keep
decorum.
the tradition, but maybe turn the page a little bit and get with the times.
I think it's going to be tough to fill Queen Elizabeth's shoes per se. I would imagine if King Charles relates to people, he would be on the right track.
Someone that's more woke, as they say, someone that cares about things that we all care about, not just things that the monarchy has traditionally cared about. Someone that thinks about important issues and finds a way to fix them, or at least proposes solutions.
Think beyond just tradition and perhaps be more in tune with the times and the realities.
I hope he'll be fair and charitable. I think he's going to do a good job. He's been waiting long enough to do it. And I think as long as the public can get behind him, he'll do a great job. I'm sure of it.
Well, that attention to service, and I'm hoping that he will modernize the monarchy somewhat. It needs to be modernized, and now that Queen Elizabeth is gone, perhaps that will happen. But I think that devotion to service is really important.
Don't care. Really don't. Nope. No, I don't have a personal connection to the monarchy at all. It doesn't affect my day-to-day life.
I would hope he would be follow the same example and be kind and respectful to people, and good example as to how to live and be happy.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Prince Charles is now going to be the new king. I think he's more inclusive. He's more probably in touch with the general population than maybe the royal family were at times. They seem to be a bit more remote. I think he seems to be more of a man of the people, and I think that he and his family will continue to be that way. They'll reach out to the general public, and I'm sure they'll be as popular as ever.
I just think, I don't know if he has the charisma of his mother. I think she's a very charismatic character and beautiful, just beautiful.
Will it be similar? Will he be up to the task? I think that's the real question right now. I mean, it's always been a question because, there's been some uncertainty about Charles over the years. But, now being in his 70s, maybe he's kind of grown into the job. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm just interested to see what King Charles is going to do and how long he will be. And yeah, interested about the Monarch, just to see what's gonna happen and what does that mean for Canadians. So,
there was a time I wasn't overly thrilled with Charles, but I was saying to my wife earlier today, he's kind of grown on me in the last few years. I think he's kind of settled into his skin at the age he's at now, and I think he's dedicated himself to climate change. He's dedicated himself to other causes that really are impacting humanity today. And so that gives me much better feeling towards him than I used to have.
And I think that from the start of his first address to the world, I believe he's on that path. I think that he will be, I think he has a challenge to live up to her expectations and her standards, but hopefully he will do that, and I'm confident that he will.
I don't really know. Will he make a good king? I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that.
Well, I hope it will be similar, and I hope that King Charles III will show the same kind of dutiful representation that his mother has over all these many years.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.